So I think we were discussing about the tractive resistances, and in that I explained to you about all the resistances that the vehicle might come across, which need to be overcome by the vehicle so that it can move easily, right? So apart from that, I also discussed about the concept of hauling capacity of a locomotive. I told you that the hauling capacity, there are different ways with which you can find out this hauling capacity of the vehicle. One such popular equation that we use is the product of mu and W. Mu is the coefficient of friction, and W is the load that is being put on the driving wheels. Now, this coefficient of friction, as I told you, depends upon the speed of the vehicle. In case if you have a high speed vehicle, the coefficient of friction would be less, that is 0.1. And in case if it is moving at a very high speed, the coefficient of friction would be 0.3, right? So that's the hauling capacity that we discussed about. Then I was supposed to start with the tractive effort. I told you that the tractive effort, either it should be equal to the hauling capacity or little more than that, so that the vehicle can displace itself from the initial position. Okay, but in case if the tractive effort that is being put on the vehicle is more, then there will be chances of the driving wheels to slip. Okay, so it's like, imagine you are sitting in a car and you have lot of sand and gravel on the surface. When you apply, when you just press the accelerator, just because you are applying more force, you might have seen how the vehicles the wheels of the vehicle, they just slip in the same position, and thereafter once it gets a sufficient friction, the vehicle will move. Okay, so that is what we call as the wheel slipping phenomena. Even in trains, when the wheels, that is metallic wheels, they are resting on the metallic rails, if the effort is effort that is applied more by the engine, these driving wheels of the locomotive, they start slipping in the same position, and once the required friction is achieved, then the vehicle will start moving ahead. Okay, so normally the work done in one revolution of the driving wheel will be obtained by using this equation. So W is the work done. So this W is equal to P multiplied by pi d square L, where P is the difference in the steam pressure. This equation is being developed long back when the steam engines were operative. Even now, the pressure can be obtained with respect to the diesel engines. Okay, so P is the difference in steam pressure, L is the length of stroke, and D is the diameter of the piston that is being used in the engine. Okay, so this is one such equation which can be used to find out the work done by a two-cylinder engine that might be there in the locomotive. These days there are many such advanced equations which have come up, but normally we can use this equation number 2 in place of equation number 1 in the current days. Okay, so the work done in one revolution of the driving wheel can be equal to pi d te. Okay, where te is the mean tractive effort and d is the diameter of the propelling wheel or the driving wheel. Okay, so there's a relationship between the tractive effort and speed of the vehicle as shown in this graph. Okay, this graph is very important while you are explaining about tractive effort that needs to be put on the vehicle. So as and when the speed of the vehicle increases in kmph, the tractive effort required to propel the vehicle would be observed to be decreasing. Okay, so imagine the speed was less, right? In the initial stage, when the speed was less, the tractive effort required will be too high. Okay, I'm not saying that the speed is zero. I'm talking about the tractive effort that is required to accelerate the vehicle. Okay, so that's why you will have to have certain minimum speed to be achieved by the vehicle. So when the speed is minimum, the tractive effort required would be maximum. As in how the speed is achieved by the vehicle, the tractive effort required by the vehicle to move itself would start getting reduced drastically. So it's a kind of exponential decrease that we can see here in the amount of tractive effort required. Okay, so this particular tendency is very important to understand when you are trying to find out the tractive effort required. So there's a very simple expression. If you equate these two equations, right, you might be able to find out the value of TE, which is the mean tractive effort. So the mean tractive effort is equal to PD square L divided by D. Okay, so you can see here that the tractive effort required is directly proportional to P, D and L and is inversely proportional to the diameter, right? So as and when the diameter decreases or the diameter of the wheels are reduced, the tractive effort required will be more. The more diameter you have for the wheel, less tractive effort would be required. Okay, so this is the relationship that you need to remember. On the contrary, if the diameter of the piston is more, then the tractive effort would be more. If the length of the stroke is more, then the tractive effort required would be more. Okay, so uh, since it is directly proportional to all these parameters, okay, you need to have an understanding of how you need to design the wheels of the vehicle and also the engine of the vehicle, right? Now in terms of horsepower, in case if we need to define or determine the tractive effort, now this horsepower what we have is the latest thing that we normally use to find out the tractive effort, right? So these days all these engines will be represented in terms of horsepower, right? So 308 multiplied by the respective horsepower of the engine divided by the velocity of the vehicle in terms of kmph, you will be able to find out what is the tractive effort, right? So this is what is the phenomena of tractive effort. So in today's class, we discussed about the resistances that the train need to overcome. Then we discussed about the hauling capacity of locomotive, and lastly we discussed about the tractive effort of the locomotive, right? There are simple examples which we can start discussing hereafter, which is based on the concepts that are being taught to you in both the classes that we took today. Okay, so all those concepts what we have studied till now will be useful in solving these problems, right? So let us consider the first example, which is a very simple example. Just simple substitution of values that have been given to you need to be done and you can start solving the problem, right? Now these examples are also available in the textbook which I already prescribed to you for your studies. That is by Saxena and Arora, Railway Engineering by Saxena and Arora, right? Now I'll read out the question here. The question is, find the hauling capacity of a locomotive with 3 pairs of driving wheels and an axle load of 20 tons. Use zero point 0.2 as coefficient of friction. So what is given here is, you have a locomotive which has 3 pairs of driving wheels and the axle load of 20 tons will be applied on it and the coefficient of friction is 0 0.2, right? You need to find out the hauling capacity. So hauling capacity, as we had discussed, is equal to the product between the coefficient of friction and weight of driving wheels or weight on the driving wheels. So 20 tons, okay, need to be multiplied by the number of pairs of driving wheels, again multiplied by uh, this is 20 tons. You are converting it into kgs, and point 2 is the coefficient of friction applied on 3 pairs of driving wheels. So 0.20 is mu here. Number of pairs of driving wheels is small n, and this is w. Okay, so mu multiplied by n multiplied by w will give you the hauling capacity. So substituting all these values here, you will be able to see that the hauling capacity of the locomotive is 12,000 kilos. Okay, so that is what you need to keep in your mind. Now the maximum axle load in India are permitted in this form. This is a very important table as well. So for broad gauge, the maximum axle load is 28.56 tons. For meter gauge is 17.34 tons, and for narrow gauge it is 13.26 tons. Right. So these are the permissible axle loads that are being permitted by the railway board. Okay, so it should not exceed these values. That is what they have indicated. Just like how you have commercial vehicles moving on roads, you might have seen that there will be different vehicles, commercial vehicles, which will be moving on the roads, isn't it? So each one of these commercial vehicles, that is the trucks and lorries that you have seen, they will have different capacities of carrying. Some might be 8.2 tons, some might be 18 tons, 16 tons, or even 20 tons, and so on, right? So this is how the permissible axle loads are being permitted in India. Apart from this, the hauling capacity can also be obtained in a different way. Imagine all these parameters are not given to you. The number of pairs of driving wheels are not given, and the load on the axle is not given, coefficient of friction is not given, right? In case if all these things are not given, also you will be able to find out the hauling capacity. So the other way of finding hauling capacity is by summing up all the train resistances that we have, right? In some questions you might be asked to find out the hauling capacity, right? And you are being given only the parameters in terms of weight and speed of the vehicle, or even sometimes the gradient, right? Or even degree of curve might be given. So using those also you can find out the hauling capacity. So hauling capacity can be also equal to the sum of various train resistances. Okay, so the train resistance will accommodate the resistance within the train, which we have already studied, plus plus the profile resistance or resistance due to track profile, right? So substituting those equations here, the hauling capacity can also be equal to 0.0016 times of W plus 0.00008 times of W into V plus 0.000006 times of WV square, again plus resistance due to the gradient plus resistance due to the curve. Now you can see here there are three such equations. Depending upon what gauge is being given to you in the problem, you need to select suitable equation out of these three, right? Imagine I have given you a track which has a broad gauge, right? Then you will have to use this first equation. So the resistance, the train resistance, that is resistance dependent on speed, independent of speed, sorry, independent of speed, dependent on speed, and then the last one, right? Plus the resistance due to gradient and resistance due to curve. So I'll be using the first equation if broad gauge is being given in the problem, right? So that's how the hauling capacity can be obtained, right? So here G, please do not get confused, it is the gradient in percentage, and this D here is in terms of degree of the curve, right? So this is a simple problem which is important for you to understand, right? Next problem is slightly complicated, where you need a little more understanding about the concept, right? So what would be the gradient for a broad gauge track when the grade resistance due to a curve of 3 degree together with curve resistance shall be equal to the resistance due to a rolling gradient of 1 in 200, right? So this is the question. So you can see here I have mentioned that we are dealing with a broad gauge track, right? So when the grade resistance due to a curve of 3° with curve resistance is equal to the resistance due to the ruling gradient of 1 in 200, you would be able to find out what gradient is permissible, right? So these are the things that you need to find out. So to solve this problem, you will have to make certain assumptions. And before we make the assumptions, you need to understand some terminologies here. So ruling gradient need to be considered, and it is been given as 1 in 200, right? So what do you mean by ruling gradient is what you need to understand. Ruling gradient is the maximum gradient that can be provided along a railway track such that the vehicle can move comfortably. You cannot increase the gradient ahead of this. Increasing the gradient means you cannot make it more steep. So you need to find out what is that maximum steepness that the vehicle can climb when the ruling gradient or permissible maximum gradient is 1 in 200. So to solve this problem, you need to assume that W would be the weight of the train and 1 in X would be the required gradient. Okay. So making this assumption, the first step here would be to equate this resistance due to required gradient with this expression. So resistance due to required gradient, that is W into G, is being used. That equation is being used here. So that gradient which is unknown will be 1 by X multiplied by W, right? That is the weight of the vehicle. So resistance due to gradient is this part is unknown to us. 1 in X is unknown. But when you consider ruling gradient, resistance due to ruling gradient is 1 by 200 multiplied by W, because it has been given in the problem, isn't it? So these are the two expressions that you need to mention in the first step. So in case if this particular train is moving along a curve of 3° on a broad gauge track, then I'll be using the first equation which I had shown you, this equation, 0.0004 times of W into D, right? This one. So 0.0004 multiplied by D, degree is 3, multiplied by again W, right? So when you have these three things mentioned clearly, the next step would be to mention that resistance due to ruling gradient, this resistance due to ruling gradient is equal to resistance due to required gradient plus resistance due to curve. So resistance due to required gradient is 1 by X multiplied by W. Resistance due to ruling gradient is 1 by 200 multiplied by W, plus resistance due to curve. This expression also we have. When you equate all these parameters, I think you can see that the weight of the train is common, right? So this weight can be cancelled by equating it like this, and you will be left out with only one unknown, that is X. So 1 by 200 is equal to 1 in X plus 0.0004 times of 3, right? So this is the only unknown. You will be able to find out what is that unknown value. So X that we have got here is 263, right? So you can assume this 263 by rounding off to the higher side, and you can mention that the required gradient is 265, 1 in 265. That means that even though the ruling gradient is 1 in 200, right, the permissible gradient, even after, if you are required to increase the steepness, you can extend it maximum up to 265, 1 in 265. Okay, so 1 in 265 would be the gradient for a broad gauge track when the grade resistance due to the curve of 3° together with the curve resistance shall be equal to the resistance to the ruling gradient of 1 in 200. That's how the statement you need to give. I hope that this problem was clear to you, right? Anyone has any doubt? Anyone has any doubt in this? Someone must reply. Any doubts?
No, sir.
You have doubts or you don't have doubts? ಬೇಗ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಪ್ಪ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಒಬ್ರು.
No doubt, sir.
Okay, so this was the first problem based on the concepts that we have discussed till now, right? We shall be solving many more such problems, and all these different problems are unique by itself. They are different types of problems, so you can find the numbers of these different types of problems in the textbooks, and you can practice for your exam. Okay, so this is one such type of problem that can be asked in the exam. There are many such problem that we will be solving in the days to come ahead. So I think there are four different types of problems which we'll be studying in this particular chapter. So as and how we move ahead, we'll be having these different problems being explained, right? So this first problem was very simple. You need to use your common sense and uh, try solving the problem through the concepts that you have studied. So I think I'll stop here, and we shall continue in the next class about the other types of problems that we have. Okay,
Okay, sir.
fine.